And the chicken dance started because the first Tapia conference was in Houston. And so Richard Tapia was there, and his family was there, and his daughter was there. We had a mariachi band, and his daughter was singing. And so it was like, okay, everybody's going to do the chicken dance. First, we're all like, okay, that's it. But we all got up and did the chicken dance, and then we had different music, and we had a Soul Train line. It was fun. And I have to admit, the next day, it's like people were like, oh, my back. Oh.
And usually it's like the last day before you need to like pack up and go to your, get on your flight to go home. So people are, in the airport like, oh, why do I have a 6 a.m. flight? Why did
I know.
It was such a good time in the last ceremony. Like, if you've never been dancing with a bunch of computer scientists and folks in tech, it is a sight.
It is an experience. It is an experience. You will not forget it. I will say that much.
Not ever. Hi, everyone. Today we have the woman, the myth, the legend, Dr. Valerie Taylor. Her hometown is Chicago, Illinois, and her current position, she is the director of the Mathematics and Computer Science Division of Argonne National Labs. Her research focuses on performance analysis and modeling of parallel scientific applications, power analysis, and resiliency. She has authored or co-authored over 100 papers in this area, so look her up. Her education, she received her bachelor's and her master's in computer and electrical engineering from Purdue University, boiler up, as you all say. Her PhD is in electrical engineering and computer science from the University of California, Berkeley. If that was not enough, she is the CEO and president of Command It, which is the Center for Minorities and People with Disabilities in IT. The organization's vision is one where computing broadly impacts society through proven inclusivity. They put on the Tapia conference. I don't know if you guys have heard us talk about the Tapia conference a ton of times on this podcast. Her org is over the entire conference, and they do a great job. They do an excellent job each year. So, in the past, she's been faculty in the Electrical Engineering and Computer Science Department at Northwestern University. She was on the faculty for 11 years there. Then she joined Texas A&M as the head of the Computer Science and Engineering Department and also the Senior Associate Dean of Academic Affairs in the College of Engineering, a Regents Professor, and the Royce E. Weisenbaker Professor in the Department of Computer Science. So she's busy. She's busy. She also began the Industries Affiliates Program to allow academics to engage with our industry partners. That's super cool. Some other things, if that wasn't enough, as you know, she's a trailblazer, so she's won a ton of awards, some of which include the Pathbreaker Award, the Hewlett-Packard Harriet B. Regas Education Award, the A. Nico Haberman Award, Sigma Chi Distinguished Lecture, the Richard A. Tapia Achievement Award for Scientific Scholarship, Civic Science, and Diversifying Acuting. Also, she's a Mobi influencer and innovator of the internet and technology. If that was not enough, she is an IEEE Fellow, which is one of the highest honors that you can receive, as well as an ACM Fellow. She also is part of the Flip Alliance, which does amazing things to help underserved people into graduate school and be successful. So I have all the words for you, but we wouldn't have a chance to finish this interview if I went through everything. So welcome, Dr. Valerie Taylor.
It's so true.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
And we've been trying to get this done for quite some time.
Yes.
So I'm glad that we got some additional funding to be able to still be here and support this. So, yes.
Well, you do great work. So
thank you.
it's expected with the additional funding.
Oh, thank you.
Well, I can't remember the first time I met you, but I do remember the first time I went to a Tapia conference. And I think most people don't realize what that experience is like, right?
Yeah.
Like how life-changing it is. And so we'll get into it later, but I just want to say thank you for actually, walking the walk, right?
Right.
Not everybody, they say a lot of things, but it's really like your actions. And you've got all the awards to support all of that.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
So we like to start with how you got introduced into computing, what early childhood was like and all of those influences. So Chicago.
Yeah. Chi-town.
Back in the day, what was that like?
Oh, it was fabulous. So let me just say, I am the youngest of 3 children. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And my father is an electrical engineer, and my mother is a teacher. And so my father, he went to school at IIT, and he went to school after we were born. Okay.
Wow.
So, we got to, see my father in school. And then he also started working at IIT. They have a research institute at that time. So it was called ITRI. And, it was fun because they had a circular driveway, So, when you're a child, you can hang out the window. My father was like, yeah, here comes my crew, hanging out the window. But he and his friends started a telecommunications company. It was called Sonocraft. And with Sonocraft, they had a number of contracts. It was actually defense contracts. So, and it's fascinating, some of the things that they developed. And on Saturdays, to give my mother a break, we would go to work with my father.
Oh my goodness.
Okay, so, and so there were soldering pots around, breadboards, all of that.
Danger.
Right. So my father, don't touch. Okay, now why do you tell a child don't touch?
You might as well say, touch this right in the middle.
That's it. And so my sister, we would be like, 2 of us, we're like, okay, you have the lookout. I'm going to go and touch this board and the parts. That soldering pot looks hot, so I'm going to leave that alone. But we had a good time touching. It was like, here comes Dad.
Oh my goodness.
But my father also built our first stereo at the house. So we had, the amplifier, it was really crisp because we had vacuum tubes. Okay, so it was analog.
Wow.
Yes. And you can see the vacuum tubes. So growing up, we knew when the stereo was on because you could see the filament light up. It was like, okay.
Oh.
Yeah, it was like, okay, jiggle it a little bit. Okay, now it's on. Okay, play the records. We good to go.
Wow. So you had your own camp, basically. You had STEM camp at home, engineering camp.
We did. Yeah. And then I think it was one project they had with Sony of building speakers. And they had all of this, the supply left. And Sony was saying you could just keep the supply. So my father was like, okay, if anybody wants a speaker, you have to come and build it yourself.
Wow.
And then you could get a speaker.
Nice. That's so much more fun. Like, I will build it.
That's it. He was like, okay, I'm going to show you with the schematic how this has to go. And then you have to build it. So we had Sony speakers around the house. Friends had Sony speakers.
That's amazing. That's super cool.
Yes, it is.
And they built things at the airport. It was flashing lights for when the plane lands. They did some of the first designs there.
Wow.
And then later on, it's kind of funny. He was telling me, he said, we built some things for the communications on Air Force One.
Wow.
But they could not talk about it, but he can talk about it now. I was like, wow, Dad, you never told us that. He was like,
kind of top secret.
That's
Right.
it. And
Kind of got a little clearance, kind of got a top secret clearance.
that's it. But it was a company. At one time, the company had grown to about 300
Oh, wow.
people. And so, my sister and I, we were all laughing because all of our friends, you had summer jobs at Sonocraft.
Wow.
When you turned 16, you got a summer job at Sonocraft. So my sister, her husband, he worked at Sonocraft, after they met, in college. And people at Sonocraft were like, I think they like each other. We're like, no, they don't. No.
Strictly professional. No.
That's it.
That's amazing.
The way he looks at her, we're like, no.
So basically, it was like in your blood.
It was, and I was telling someone, I said, if you think about the smells that remind you of childhood, it's the smell of a soldering pot, a soldering iron. I don't know.
Yeah.
I know.
Like,
it's familiar. And even in high school, when I turned 16, I got a chance to work on the assembly line with building boards.
Mm-hmm.
And I became a really good solderer. So
that is really good. So we're going to get you, some people like the vanilla candles or remind them of home, cinnamon. We're going to get you a soldering iron scented.
I have it at home. Somebody was like, I go, here, you just need a little solder.
Oh my goodness gracious.
And wait a minute. And I kept the wicker where you could desolder. Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That it would absorb the solder so you can get the solder off. Yeah. I was good at that too.
So that is amazing. So it seems like education was always part of your family's, this is part of your mantra. The fact that your dad would go back to school with the three of you. So, college was probably a no-brainer, right?
It was college and my mother put us in engineering over the summer. So we all did engineering, programs with summer. It was either IIT or Purdue or different summer camps.
Were y'all coming in like, we are the experts. We have Sony speakers we put together in our house. We know this. Move aside, teacher.
No, you just go in and go, pay attention.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That was a different time, right?
Yeah.
You didn't talk to your teachers.
You're right.
Or adults.
Yeah.
You were just like, Professor so-and-so. And
yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. And keep it moving.
That's it. That's it.
Mm-hmm. It was a different time.
Yes.
I think about how much kids are not able to have that kind of access these days because of all of the rules, right? The red tape that's up. Imagine bringing your kid to a lab, an active lab right now. It's not happening.
Not at all.
I know. There's so many requirements. And at that time, it was a lot more relaxed. So we could go in, with my father on Saturday.
And you were safe, right?
We were safe, and we had to look out.
You had to look out. You had a structured approach, right?
We did.
Somebody was over safety. Somebody was observing, making sure everything was in compliance.
Right. And they had, for example, they had some of the early computers, like the PDP 11780. So back then with DEC, they were, because of the work they were doing, they had to do, a lot of simulations with respect to defense contracts. Mm-hmm. So he even has a picture when he actually went to the White House. And at that time, he was meeting with then Vice President Bush.
Wow.
Yeah.
So your dad just acted just casually I'm just kind of a big deal in this government contracting space. And the fact that he entered this area of, just of work after having kids, in a later, as some people would consider a later phase of life, that's amazing.
It is. And I think he laughs and he goes, when you have 3 kids, a family, they keep you, balanced and they keep you grounded. So you can say, "Ooh, I've done all of this," and you go home and your kids are bouncing off the wall. You keep it grounded.
Yeah.
It's true.
Right. And your kids, and I know my kids did that for me. You have things going on at work and you're all excited and you get home and your kids are like, "Can I get some ice cream?"
That is so relatable right now.
Yeah. And you're just like, "Yeah, let's go get some ice cream." It doesn't matter what you were working on, the excitement.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, it's ice cream. Okay. Yeah.
The rest of the world does not matter.
That's it. That's
so
it.
funny.
It just keeps you so grounded.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you stayed close to home when you decided to transition to college.
Yes.
What drew you to Purdue? Was it all those camps that you were doing?
Well, the part that drew me to Purdue, it was 2 things. So, my father went to IIT. My brother went to IIT. My sister also went to IIT. And so my sister and I, we were in, we went to all girls high school together, and we're 2 years apart. And I would like to play jokes, in high school. And so my sister, she was like, okay, when she went to college, she goes, okay, when you go to college, you go to a different college. We're not going to be in college together. I said, was it because I told people we were twins? So, I wanted to see, so I told people we were twins. And they were like, well, how did you get to be 2 grades apart? And so I was like, well, she made a double. And don't tell anybody. I was like, I flunked. And they were like, really? I was like, yeah, but we're actually twins. And so my sister, when she heard it, she goes, why are people asking me if we're twins? I was like, I don't know.
Wasn't me.
I don't know.
They just made it up. So I don't know where they got that idea from.
Okay, so she was sick of you and was like,
this is my chance to leave.
That's it. She was like, So you have to go to a different college. You cannot go to IIT. So I didn't even apply for IIT, okay? Because she was like, I'm telling you now, start looking.
Wow.
That's hilarious.
Yes.
And so then I went to this camp, this engineering camp. It was called Minorities Introduction to Engineering. And this was led by Marion Blaylock at Purdue. Yes.
Marion.
Yes. You know Marion?
I did know Marion.
Yes.
Through NSBE.
Yes. Yes. And so Marion, it was so much fun. Like we were up at night playing bid whist. I love bid whist. I am a bid whist, champion.
Sounds like we need to have like a bid whist tournament at one of these gatherings.
Right. But, but my father's my partner. Because we understand each other's cards.
So y'all cheat. Is what I'm hearing.
We understand what our cards mean. Let's just say that. You don't have that ramp up.
Okay. Right. Y'all have the hand signal. I get it.
We're like, okay.
Probably eyebrows and winks.
We know when you play low, person, you're supposed to play your highest. Don't play around.
If I tap the table with the cards, you go for it.
But it was so much fun. And we went to, different engineering programs. But at the end of that week, we were all like, hey, if you apply, I'll apply. Was great. And see, the previous week, I had gone to another program that was for women in engineering, okay? And I went to that program, and there were only 2 Black women in the program with like 100 students.
Not shocked.
Okay, so I get there, I look around, and I see the other Black student, and I go all the way down, and she was in the second row. I went all the way down to the front. It's like, excuse me, excuse me, excuse me.
Right.
I sat next to her, and she goes, hey, we're like, hey. It's like, ooh, it's not many of us here.
Right.
But you go next week, Purdue. Oh, I was like, this is the place for me.
Wow. So community was definitely like, not even just, you hadn't even been like encultured into the community, but just even the perception of I'm going to be here and be supported and have people who look like me, and they're fun. They're doing fun stuff.
That's it. We have things in common. And so many of us did return. And at Purdue at that time, if you were accepted into Purdue, what was it, that spring semester, you had a week, and I think it was called pre-engineering, for you to come and meet others who had been accepted. So then again, we're like, hey. Okay, you're going, I'm going. Yeah, okay. I'll see you in August. So, so then it was funny, we were all seeing each other, on move-in day and things like that. So this was back before cell phones. So my father helped us, helped me move in. And then I got a call from a friend. And so my, my father's like, who's calling already? I was like, oh, they're friends from so-and-so. He goes, really? Yeah. I was like, it's all good.
Right.
Yeah, like,
you
can leave.
Right. Like, I'm good. You've done a good job.
And my mom, we should stay a little while. My father's like, no, she seems to be all good.
Right. She got her little friends, so let's go.
It's because you had a connection with him. He could just read you, right?
That's it. He was like, I think she wants us to leave. And see, and even today, I am friends with my freshman roommate.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Wow.
That's awesome.
That's really awesome.
I hope that ends up being a thing for me too. I do.
So we call each other.
Oh, that's nice.
Stay in contact.
So did you all like take the same classes? Did you have the same major? Did you join like the same orgs?
Well, actually, no. It was what was it? She was in chemical engineering. And she was actually a junior when I was a freshman. And we laugh about this today because when I, was at the dorm and everybody's like, oh, so long as your roommate is not Beverly, you're good. And I was like, actually, my roommate's name is Beverly. And they were like, well, it can't be this one person. And I was like, yeah, that's her last name. They were like, oh. They were like, Beverly, she is very conventional, thinks you should be studying all the time and all that. And I was like, we're good. Okay. And so Beverly, it was so funny because at that time I was like, okay, 10 o'clock, I was asleep. That was the norm. And she's like, you going to bed? I was like, yeah, I have to get my rest. I was like, the best way to study for a class, I go, read the material, but be rested. So that way you can ask questions during class and make certain that you understand things discussed in class.
Right.
And I was like, my parents pay too much money for me to leave this class and not understand what he's saying.
Right. And to show up just not prepared to figure things out. Like, asleep. Yeah, half asleep.
No, but I gotta get my sleep. And so I think one time Beverly, and I'm not saying her last name, so it's all good. So one time, Beverly, I think I went out some night and I think my mother called. And my mother is not one for tattletelling, okay? So I think Beverly called herself like, your daughter is out. And so my mother said, if my daughter is out, she knows what she's doing. And I don't take people telling me what my daughter's doing because she's going to tell me. So she's like, we good? Beverly's like, so the next day, Beverly's like, I said, oh, my mother called. She goes, yeah, but we're good.
She got her together.
I was like, okay, all right. She goes, we're good. I was like, okay. And after that, there was
No
Nothing.
misunderstandings.
No misunderstanding. She was like, you got this. I was like, yeah, it's okay.
Okay, so I have a question because
Yes.
Purdue is like very well known for their minority engineering program, and Marion, starting all of that and bringing people together, but then also for the National Society of Black Engineers.
Yes.
So could you talk about that?
Oh, yes. The Chicago 7.
Yes.
Okay, speak on it.
Okay.
I want to know.
Okay. So it, back in the day. So it was so much fun because there were so few, Blacks in engineering that we got together. NSBE served as the organization for us to come together, get to know each other, share, homework and files for different courses and things like that to help in the preparation for a course. It was great. And I think, so this was back in the 80s, okay, when NSBE was first started. And the first, what was it? The national conference was in Chicago.
Oh, nice.
Yes. And the agenda was such that lunch, it was recognized that lunch was not included in the agenda, but the meeting was so small, we were all in a room. So all you had to do was go, hey, we're going to break now for lunch, and then we'll all come back in about an hour. Work for everybody? Yeah, we'll continue this in an hour, okay?
Wow.
I know now it's like 10,000 people.
Yeah.
So exciting. So then NSBE was just getting the structure of having regions and, having a national president. I think Brian Saunders was the first national president. It was Janet Rutledge was the vice president. And so Janet and I were faculty together at Northwestern. We went after the PhD. And in large part, you get tired of being by yourself. I was like, another Black woman faculty? I am at Northwestern.
Yeah.
Woo, it was nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Oh,
yeah. She's amazing. Like, she just retired too. She's amazing. I ran into her during my time at UMBC, and she always so helpful, such a resource. Now I see how she came through the NSBE system of like, look, we're going to look out for each other. So now it all makes sense.
Yes, she did with NSBE. Even when we were both at Northwestern, I just have to tell you, when I interviewed at Northwestern for a faculty position, your first interview while you're in grad school, I wore some heels and I was not used to wearing heels, with your suit. And I was like, oh man, my feet are killing me. So I asked the department chair, he was like, oh, what do you want to do for dinner? I said, I would be really happy to just have time with Janet. When Janet and I go to dinner, just the two of us. He goes, really? I go, oh, that would be fantastic. Then I got with Janet. I was like, Janet, I'm going to go back to the hotel, change to some jeans, gym shoes. We can go by the store, get some pot pies. Yeah. And that can be our dinner. I was like, that would be great. I was like, I'm not wearing these shoes.
Right.
That's real.
Yeah. I was like, no. So yeah, it was great.
So amazing. So you were like kind of, the Chicago 6 are the founding members of NSBE.
Yes.
7 is, I'm assuming, their advisor that you're referring to, who helped establish the chapter. And so you were there after most of them had gone on, right? And so there was probably still some momentum of that movement on your campus.
There was.
Were there people who were just like, let's get everybody Black here at Purdue. Let's bring them all in. Is that kind of how it felt? Maybe
Purdue, Marion was excellent with recruiting, and Marion understood what needed to be done, that it was about creating community. And so, for example, freshman year, Marion had a class for Black engineering students, freshman students.
Really?
And so Marion would talk about good study habits. She would bring in speakers. And at that time, that's when Howard Adams was starting the gym program.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, so Howard Adams came in and gave a lecture about doing your best. And I still tease him about that today. Because Howard Adams, he was just like, you need to be doing your best. He was like, in college, I was dating at the time, and that she's now my wife. He said, we were taking chemistry together. He's like, I got a C, but he goes, I worked so hard for that C. My girlfriend at the time, she got a B. I told her, you should be ashamed of yourself. It's like, because you could have gotten an A. Like, you were material. And your good enough was an A.
I can't deal with him.
Was a C, and I was proud of myself. He's like, so long as you do your very best, he goes, and when you do your best versus when you slack off.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, he's still the same person today.
Yes.
He's like,
I can hear him saying this.
That's it. You need to bring your A game.
Right.
To every single class. I was like, oh.
Yeah, I got lectured at ASEE. So I'm sure that was it was wonderful, but it was like he made a beeline to me. I know you.
And for anyone listening who has never heard Howard Adams speak, just if you see his name on anything, go. And I promise it's going to be a good time. Come back and drag me on the internet if it is not a good time. It is a good time.
That's it. And Howard, he also talks about mentoring. Have you heard his mentoring about the big dog?
What's the big dog?
He was like, when you have to look for a mentor, get a big dog. He said, and know that a Chihuahua is not a big dog. They just bark a lot. That's not a big dog. You need a big dog such that when you are not there in person, that big dog carries weight. He said, so find out who are the big dogs and connect with the big dogs. I go,
This is really like filling me.
Yeah,
so much.
Like I'm literally writing notes to be like, this is going to be a clip. But it's so true. Like it is so true. And there's people who are super talented out there, but it's like if you don't have a big dog to say your name in those rooms when you're not there, you're doing all this work with no recognition. And then you're upset because you feel like you're doing the work and you might see somebody else. You have his handbook for listening. Jeremy just held up his handbook.
You go, Jeremy.
Yes. And I have his, there's a poster that he used to give out about, I had it taped to my cubicle in grad school and I would look at it every single day. When I finished, I got it laminated. Like this, it was like, this thing has helped me so much. Like it was just so encouraging. And
he
like,
still hands them out.
Yes. And I will gladly take another. I need to put one in the lab, actually.
We should get you some.
Yes.
Yes.
That's amazing. So I had a quick question about jumping back to NSBE. So you're just like, oh yeah, NSBE started. And then all of a sudden there's all these chapters. Like that's really difficult. Like, I'm just curious, how in the world were you part of that, like getting NSBE out to the masses? Because everybody, everyone's in Purdue, but now, NSBE spans internationally today.
Right.
So, how did you get like that structure? So everybody's kind of on the same page and about the same mission and all that.
So I had a chance to see the structure be put into place. I wasn't part of the structure. I was part of the receiving side going, thank you for getting us together. And
you're part of the proof of concept.
That's it. And so, but it was like, as you talk to people as you talk to friends at other institutions, then they would talk to advisors about starting chapters.
Mm-hmm.
And Marion, it was, and I've forgotten his name, the last name is Arthur, that was the initial advisor.
We can look it up.
Yes.
Bond. That's what it is. Bond.
Yes.
Okay, so you can start this sentence again.
Yes. So the initial advisor was Arthur Bond. And so your initial advisor has contacts at other institutions that can talk about, here's what we're doing at Purdue, and look at replicating that at other institutions. And then after you get a certain level of momentum, you need to have some structure in place. So we could see the structure being put into place. So I saw some of that with regions. So we became Region 4. And it was like, how do you define a region? And I think they looked at the institutions and tried to have uniformity in terms of the number of institutions in the 6 regions. And so then you started to have national conferences. And I think and have the structure of having national leadership. So having regional leadership, then national level leadership. So I remember, meeting Janet one time, at a meeting at Purdue, and it was wonderful to see a Black woman as vice president. And I was just like, so I would tease her when I was at Northwestern. I was like, yeah, it was so exciting to see you as vice president of this national organization. But you're seeing this evolve over time of the growth. And then you get a feeling of a community that, first there's a community in your major. Then you get a community in the college. Then you have a community that goes across the college, in terms of the university. But now you're having community that goes across institutions. And that's really, inspiring, such that when you talk about the issues that are going on at Purdue, you realize the grass is not greener on the other side. The grass is about the same at different institutions in terms of the issues, where small numbers in the classes and things like that, and feeling isolated and the issues that come up, because now you have to do projects. And, if you're one in a class and you have to do a project, it was like, okay, here we go again. How am I going to get a person that I'm going to work with and things like that? So it's not so easy. So and then you do get on a team and people think you're there just to take notes. You got to correct people like, no, I can contribute and I plan to contribute and I'm not here to take notes. And
that still happens today.
It does.
Unfortunately.
It does. Yes. Yeah. But I think, as you get older, you're in a position to deal with it. When you're a freshman, sophomore, junior, by the time you're a senior, you're ready to deal with it. You're a freshman, sophomore, you're like, what do you mean? You may not feel like you have a voice just yet, but then junior year, your voice is going strong. By senior year, you're like, hey, you walked in with a voice.
Right.
Yeah.
Did you feel like having that background already in engineering from home, gave you this confidence already? People talk about imposter syndrome, but you did not have to feel like an imposter because you're like, I've done this. I am not new to this. I am true to this. So did you avoid some of those feelings with that background?
It's like, regardless of your background, when you go into a new setting, you still have that feeling because you're getting to know people. And there are some people who are very, and I won't say outspoken because that's not the word, but they like to brag about their accomplishments.
Yeah.
And so I'm not one to do that. And so you start off where you have all of these people bragging. And that's not you. And I go, I have to be true to me and be myself and not try to be something that I'm not. So if this, bragging is not working for me, I'm not going to do it. But it takes a little time before you feel that confidence in that setting to go, I just need to be myself, and that's okay. So I think anytime, like starting at Purdue, my father went with me to freshman orientation, and where you get assigned your math class and you get assigned, if you're taking chemistry. And I was like, well, I want the chemistry with the lab. And so I remember talking to my father. I was like, Dad, I don't know, this may be hard. He was like, you got this. He's a very young. He was like, you got this. I was like, well, what happens if I don't do well? He was like, then you figure out what you need to study and you go try again. Like, well, he goes, okay, what else you got? I was like, well, what happens, if I party too much? He goes, you figure out you're partying too much, scale it back. And, he was like, it's a learning process. You're not going to go in perfect. You're going to go in learning, and it's okay. We all have to learn. I was like, oh, okay. All right. He's like, being yourself is good enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. So even today he reminds me, being yourself is good enough.
That's such a good reminder.
It is. He's like, yeah, yourself is good. Know that. Okay.
So outside of NSBE and studying for classes and apparently partying, how did you decide to go to graduate school? Because I'm assuming your father didn't do that, right? Like he just got his degree and started hustling.
That's it.
You decided a different path.
I did. And so it was interesting because when I was finishing undergrad, I decided, I was like, I'm having a good time learning. I want to continue this for a master's. So during my senior year, I was considered a dualie, where I was taking some grad courses that would count for grad school and also count for my undergrad degree.
So they had like one of those programs, like a 4+1 type of program.
Right. And then I decided to do the master's thesis because I was like, I want to do something that's, fun outside of class. So I did the master's thesis, and that was great. And then my advisor at the time, he kept saying, you should really think about the PhD. And he wanted me to apply to the NSF fellowship. And so I think I was like, you know what? Okay, I'm going to apply to the NSF fellowship so we can move on.
Like, let me humor you for a second.
That's it. I'm going to apply. And so then he was like, let me see your application before you submit it. I go, I live up to my word, But in any case, I applied, and then I got the fellowship. Okay. But when I was finishing the master's, I was also interviewing. And when I was interviewing at some places, they were telling me, you really need a PhD. And one place, this one guy, he waited for me outside of the restroom, and he was like, do not come unless you have a PhD.
Wow.
I was like, really? He was like, I'm just telling you. Okay? I was like, oh, okay. But I had this one job offer that would take me to California, where I would be. My sister was in California at that time. I was like, hey, we'll be in Cali together.
Yeah, I'm sure she was thrilled.
She's like, great.
But by then she was like, okay, all right, we went to different schools. We're okay.
Okay.
All right. So she was like, oh, that'll be fun. But then I got the NSF fellowship. All right. And so my advisor he was like, you're going to take the NSF fellowship, right? I was like, there's a spot that says decline. I said, so I can decline it. He was like, you what? I was like, I'm thinking about taking this job. He was like, okay, take the weekend off. I was like, And he was of the type where we would meet on Friday and then Monday. Okay, so you worked over the weekend.
Oh, wow.
Okay,
so he's like, I need to see results over the
right.
weekend.
Wow.
Okay. So he was just like, take the weekend off. I was like,
What's
really?
going on?
You know, so
Right.
then I'm like, hey, okay. But then that weekend, he had people call me. Okay.
Oh, so he had plans for that
He
weekend.
did. So someone called. It was a professor from Georgia Tech. And he called me about the fellowship, and he was like, you really should, look at grad school right now. I was like, well, I can work and then go back to grad school afterwards. He goes, that really doesn't work. He goes, because once you leave, it's hard to come back because you have a family, and then it's hard. And I was like, well, my father, went to school. He was like, you have the funding, you should think about it. So then I came up with another excuse. I said, well, I'll finish the master's in December and I haven't applied to grad school. He goes, I can talk to people at Berkeley.
Wow.
I was like, really?
Like, do you have to?
So then it was Monday, and my advisor was like, so are you going to apply to Berkeley? I go, you knew about these phone calls.
Of course.
Yeah, so I applied to Berkeley, got in, and, so then I started thinking, I was like, well, maybe it's a good time. And, so I ended up going to Berkeley. Now that's a new experience.
I ended up going to Berkeley. Like, that's not a thing people say.
I just fell into the laps of Berkeley, Wow.
Well, because I had, I was thinking about the job.
Mm-hmm.
But let me just say, I went to Berkeley. Okay. But it was funny because, you talk about imposter syndrome. So you get to Berkeley and everybody, they really talk about their accolades and, the grad students, their accolades and, their accomplishments and what they're doing. The faculty are wonderful, okay, and very down to earth. But some of the grad students, I was like, whew. So I had to call my father again. I was like, I'm a bit overwhelmed. And again, you got this. He was like, it's okay. Hey, it's good. It's good. And they came out to visit. And it was good. And the faculty, to tell you how really nice the faculty are, like one faculty member, Manuel Blum, who's very well known in theory in computer science. And he's since retired. And I think one time I was telling him, I was like, I'm not certain about what to do. He goes, you need some friends. So he goes, come here. So he went over to the copy machine and he goes, we're going to stand here and I'm going to introduce you to students that come by. I was like, I don't think that's the way you meet friends. I was like, he goes, but you need some friends. I was like, I'll get friends. It's okay. Everybody that came by, he was like, here, he would introduce me. You need to be her friend.
Oh my goodness. You're like, hi.
This wasn't my idea.
Right?
I know. It was like, yeah, I'm Valerie Taylor. Yeah.
And apparently I need friends.
I know. But then the Black students got together. And that was wonderful. So at that time at Berkeley, you had Gary May was there. Also Colin Paris. So Colin is now, I think, the CTO at GE. And Gary is the chancellor at UC Davis. Yes, and we had also Kevin Cornegay, who's a professor at Morgan State. Then you had also, I got to know, who is it, Monique? And so Monique she stopped at the master's and I was like, oh, Monique, please stay. But she was like, no, Valerie, I'm done.
Gotta get out of here.
Yes, but she has her own company and what she does. So it was really great, the Black students at Berkeley.
Y'all had a dream team there, like all-star dream team. Like, did you even think coming in like, hey, yes, we're here to be each other's support and community, but literally you all are at the tops of all of your orgs right now?
What? You don't think about that. It was, because we were all, working on research, but then we would get together on Saturdays to do some things and have fun. So it was great.
That's awesome. So if I had to guess, I don't know, are you an extrovert or would you say you're introvert or somewhere in between?
I would say, so I consider myself an introvert.
Okay.
But here's the reason why. While I enjoy talking with people and getting out there, getting to know people, the part where I get my energy is when I'm by myself.
Okay.
And I get a chance to think through things. So sometimes for me, for example, when I'm giving a presentation, I have to first get my thoughts together by myself, and then I'm ready to come together as a group. But if people go, oh, let's just get together as a group, I go, I need to get my thoughts together, and then I can come in, because that's where I get my energy. But then I use my energy in interactions with others.
That makes sense. I was going to ask you, because a lot of your success, you talk about having community and support. What would you tell introverts who feel like, oh, it sounds like, in order to succeed in academia and industry, I need to have, this extrovert, or they may feel they need an extroverted personality to meet people. Like, what advice or tips would you give them?
I would say it's fine to be just who you are. And so being an introvert, the part about community and needing others, and that comes from the fact that oftentimes you have questions that go beyond your knowledge base. And so seeking out answers from others is the part that motivates you to talk with others. So do not feel like you have to know everything yourself. And that's where others come in, is because everybody has different skill sets and knowledge base that you can learn from others. And that's the part to leverage. And I think, learning from those who look like you inspires you. Learning from those who do not look like you is also inspirational, and in terms of gathering details. So oftentimes you may think, I need to know all of this by myself, but the reality is you know a piece, and that's great. Know your piece well, and know that you can get knowledge from others. So it's the sharing of knowledge that really, I think even as an introvert, it causes you to interact with others.
So did you just kind of dance through graduate school, check all the boxes?
Oh,
no. Somehow find yourself in an assistant professor position? Is that how that works?
Just,
No, not at all. So for example, at Berkeley, when I took my, prelim exam, and so, and because I was in computer engineering, I took a combination of written exam and oral exams. Okay. And the part I struggled with was the written exam in theory. Okay, in CS theory. So I had to retake that exam because I wasn't solving the problems in a mathematical way. I was solving the problems in an engineering way. Okay, and that's what I was told. And so I was like, okay. And so, and I remember, I called my parents. I was like, I'm having a really hard time. And my mother, she goes, are your legs broken? I was like, no. And so I was like, but Mom, she goes, let me tell you, so-and-so from church, just got diagnosed with this and they don't have long. I was like, really? And so she was like, yeah, now, she goes, now, what did you want to tell me? I was like, oh, well, I just called to say hi, and I have to get back to work.
Oh my
She
goodness.
goes, oh,
Wow.
okay, all right. Well, you take care now. Call anytime. Okay.
Oh my
So
goodness.
it's all relative, And
Yeah.
you realize, you kind of go, okay, these are my problems, but there are bigger problems that people deal with. And so the things I'm dealing with, it's okay. And it's going to be okay. It's not a life-death situation. I think that was the point she was trying to make.
My mom always says that to me. She's like, did anybody die?
I know.
Okay.
Then you have time to recover. She goes,
Yeah.
yes. And you just go, okay. Yeah. I was like, okay, if the exam is looking at the theory in this way, let me figure that out. So I went back to the professor and I was like, I need help. He was like, I said, obviously I'm not doing it in the right way. So can you help me? And he worked with me and had his senior PhD student. We worked together over the summer. And I would answer questions. He would give me questions to answer. And then in the fall, I retook the exam.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. So no, it wasn't smooth sailing. It was yeah.
I'm just happy that support existed, because some people's stories are, I didn't do well on the exam and they kicked me out the program, versus they worked with me to get through it because they saw, okay, yes, you're solving this in this sort of way. It's not a question of your capability. You just need to learn the way that they're expecting. So.
Right. And sometimes you have to reach out yourself because, I reached out to him when I realized, I was having problems with working on an exam. I'm just like, this is, obviously, I think I'm doing it right, but I'm not. So I need help. It's no need for me to just keep going down this one track. And even, I had some issues with one of the faculty. And so I just went to the faculty member to say, I'm just wondering, because he had issues with my writing. And I went to a technical writer, and the technical writer was like, no, your writing is fine. And so I went back to him. I was like, okay, you have issues with the writing. Technical writer says it's fine. Okay, how do we resolve this?
Right.
I need to graduate. And he was on my committee. And so my advisor, came back, and I told him everything that was going on. He goes, let me handle this. And I didn't understand. That's when I began to understand. It reminded me Howard Adams of A Big Dog. And he just said, let me handle it. And I'm going, but so, he goes, let me handle it. That's it. Yeah. I was like, oh, okay. I'll go back to working on the research. He was like,
yep.
He was like, you will finish on time. I was like, oh. And I did.
Oh, yes.
Oh, that's excellent.
Yes. And then you decided, I want more of this. So you wanted to become faculty. So what was that decision like? Because, not everyone, but, you grew up seeing industry at work in your own house, but you're like, you know what, I'm going to continue and go into academia. So did you have any sort of just any battles you had to think about with yourself to wager what to choose?
Industry. Again, it was where I did have that industry focus, because my advisor, David Messerschmidt, he was in industry for some time and then came to academia. And so when I was graduating, he was like, so what do you want to do? And I was saying, I'm going to go into industry and then, go into academia later. He was like, no, you're needed in academia. I was like, excuse me?
Wow.
He said, no, there are not that many Black women in academia, and you're needed in academia.
Wow.
I was like, I have to give this some thought. Okay. So I think I saw some friends after that. They go, what's wrong? I was like, I feel the weight of the world on my shoulder. I was like, I'm not ready for that.
Right.
I was like,
You're doing this for humanity.
I know. I was all set for, for industry and I'm needed in academia. I was like, I don't know. And so then the next week I went back and he's like, I talked to some people at different universities.
At least he told you.
Yeah, he said,
Yeah.
so, do you have your CV ready? I was just like, I guess I will. Yes, let's get the CV ready. So I applied to both industry and academia. And I interviewed at both.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was after interviewing at both that I began to see in academia, I was asked, where do you want to go in 5 years? In industry, it was conveyed that my research aligned with this project. And I was like, I kind of like that being asked, where did I see things going? And yeah, I was like, oh, I kind of like that.
Mm-hmm.
So then I was trying to decide between 2 universities. And again, my dad is a really good mentor, as well as my mom. And so, I went back and I was like, I can't decide between the 2. He goes, there's no wrong decision. I was like, he goes, if you find that it's not working out, you can change and go a different place.
That's how I got into academia.
Yes.
If you don't like it, you can quit. I'm like, oh yeah, I can, huh?
You start thinking for the lifetime.
Right.
And then they bring you back and you just go, oh, that's a really good point.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. He goes, so which one is the highest on your list? And I was like, oh, I have to think about this. And that's when I decided, I was like, it makes a big difference to go someplace where there's another Black woman already there.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yes. So then it was smooth sailing at Northwestern.
Janet and I can laugh about that. I think with the 2 of us there, it was funny because they would say, they went from 1 to 2, so they doubled in 1 year. Okay,
100% improvement.
Right, we doubled the number of Black women faculty in the department.
Ridiculous.
Wow.
And then people would get us mixed up. Janet, they would call me Janet. And her
anything alike.
I was just gonna ask.
I know. And we were just like, really? And she's in digital signal processing.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm in computer systems. Okay.
The worlds do not meet.
Right. And then it was also, they were building up their computer systems area. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I was naive, it takes a lot to build up an area because you're revamping the courses and all of that. So we did a lot in the computer systems area. It was 2 of us that came from Berkeley to Northwestern, and we were both in systems. Oh, what's your daughter's name?
This is Amara.
Hi, Amara.
Hi. You can have a popsicle.
That's right. Ask now.
Popsicle. We just went full circle. I remember when you said you asked for ice cream.
That's it.
It's like everything's going on throughout your day, and then let me get some ice cream. She really did that.
Wow. Popsicle. She browned it.
Amazing.
But Janet and I, it was an experience. And you also have the tenure process.
Yeah.
At that time. And see, for me, it helped. I had a joint appointment at Argonne. So my first year at Northwestern, I went to supercomputing conference. And everyone there, I would meet, they would say, if you're starting at Northwestern, you need to meet Rick Stevens. Okay. And I was like, okay, can you tell me who is Rick Stevens? They were like, a tall guy with long hair. I was like, that's a lot of people here.
That's everybody at supercomputing.
That's it. I was like, hey, can you help me a little more? So finally, someone introduced me to Rick Stevens. And he was like, why don't you come out and give a talk? I was like, oh, okay. So I went out, gave a talk, because at that time I was doing work with sparse matrices. Now it's a hot topic. Okay. So architectures for sparse matrices or sparse matrix computations. And so then Rick is like, yeah, what about coming out here, hanging out with us, doing research here? I was like, okay. And so it was before they had the leadership computing facility at Argonne. It was just a mathematics and computer science division. So then I had this joint appointment at Argonne, which was great. Okay. And it was where I would request to have my teaching be Tuesday, Thursday, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I was at Argonne.
Nice.
I had a shared office. I got to know people. One guy from Northwestern, he would be out at Argonne about once a week. And I think he heard me laughing at Argonne. And he was like, Valerie, you're having a good time out here, aren't you? I was like, oh, yeah.
Having big fun.
That's it. I was like, I found my tribe out here. Oh, this is, hey, collaborations. Oh, I was having a good time. Yes. And
that's great. And they didn't did their department have any issue with it?
No, they didn't, because it gave me an opportunity in terms of research in high performance computing, because it's not where I had many collaborators at Northwestern, but I had a large number at Argonne.
Yeah, and you need facilities. So if they're like, hey, we don't have to pay for this and she gets access to all this infrastructure, go.
That's it. That is it. So it was wonderful. And then, after a little while, so I went through the tenure process. And so, there's the tenure process of going to an associate professor, and then I went to full professor. And I'm going to say it wasn't just a straight shot of. I was
going to ask, were they playing games with tenure as many departments do?
So you always, sometimes for me, I was like, I need a backup plan. So I talked to another department head, and he was like, Valerie will be the backup. I was like, wow. Thank you. Okay, thank you. Wow. Yeah, because you just, sometimes you never know. You never know.
Yeah.
Because, and the department head at Northwestern at that time, he said, make certain you don't have zeros in any area, with grants, with papers, and, with your service and things like that. And I was like, I think it's a little bit more than a non-zero.
Right. Okay. He said, make sure you are not a sparse matrix trying to go up for tenure.
You're going to have to explain sparse matrices for the listeners.
So a sparse matrix is a matrix for which you have a large number of zeros and you have very few non-zeros. And so you can have things where, I was working on problems where it may be something that's 1 million by 1 million size matrix, and maybe only 3% of the matrix, consists of non-zeros. So you don't want to do all those computations
because they're zero.
Right.
Yeah. I'm going to start calling my colleagues sparse matrices. Like, hey, you don't contribute. You don't do anything. You're being a sparse matrix right now.
Okay.
That's it.
Hopefully they don't listen to the podcast.
And if they do, they know who they are. They look at them, start naming them, because tenure gives you the audacity.
Oh my God.
Yes.
I digress.
But you do, as you go through academia, your voice gets stronger.
Yeah. And then another layer of having a kid, it got even stronger because you start to see what is important, what is not. And yeah, I'm scared of myself now, actually.
Yes, because I have 2 children. They're grown now. But what was it? When I was going up for tenure, that's when I had my son. And so I had to give a tenure talk. And at that time, I was 9 months pregnant.
Oh, wow.
Whew.
And so I'm giving the tenure talk, and the department head says, this is the first time we've ever had a pregnant woman give a tenure talk. You kind of go, really? Really?
But also, like, why? Like, why is this a conversation?
Right. So then everybody, but I was 9 months, and so someone said, well, Valerie, are you okay? I was like, yeah, I'm okay to give my talk. I said, during questions, I'll have a seat. But when I'm giving my talk, it's fine. But within the next week, I did, go into labor.
Oh my goodness. So that timing was like right on point. Like, okay, I've done my talk. Wow.
Yeah.
And your son was your first?
My son was my first.
Okay.
Yeah. Wow. And then 3 years later, I had my daughter. So yes. So and people's view about maternity leave or parental leave.
Yeah.
And that was, at that time, we had to get approval from the dean for leave. Wow. I know, that was the view. It was like, are you going to deny it? Well, I don't understand it. But they have since, by the time I had my daughter, the leave policy had changed, where it wasn't this approval process. It was, here's the leave that you can expect.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. So it was where you would get off at least a quarter, because Northwestern was on a quarter system.
Mm-hmm.
So you would get off at least a quarter.
That's good.
Yeah. So that was good. And if it was around the time where you could combine it with the summer, it made it even better.
Even better.
Mm-hmm.
So go ahead, Jeremy.
I was just going to ask, I know a lot of people are not familiar with national labs.
Yes.
Right. So could you kind of give some context to that, and then maybe specifically talk about Argonne National Labs?
Oh, I would be happy to talk about the national labs. So the Department of Energy has 17 national laboratories. And so some of the national laboratories are multi-purpose, and some are defense labs. And you have 3 defense labs, and that means that they work on defense type projects, oftentimes requiring a clearance. And that's where they also manage, the nuclear weapons program.
Mm-hmm.
And so the 3 defense labs are Sandia National Laboratory, Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory, and everyone knows about Los Alamos National Laboratory with the Manhattan Project.
Yes.
And so Argonne is a multi-purpose national laboratory, and we were actually the first Department of Energy national laboratory. And so, yes, and so we look at nuclear technology for peacetime missions. So looking at things such as, for example, nuclear reactors. And you're seeing a lot of discussions now around what they call SMR, and that's small modular reactors, because as you see energy needs increase because of data centers and a lot that's being done in the AI and large language models, SMRs are starting to resurface as a green energy source.
A much better choice to what's going on now.
Right.
That's a whole other podcast episode.
That is about, and so we will need more energy, but we do have a focus on energy efficiency. Mm-hmm. So at the national labs, so you have 17 national labs across the nation. And so with the national labs, you have unique facilities, large-scale facilities. So for example, you have the supercomputing facilities or the exascale machines are at the national labs. Argonne has one, and that's Aurora that's an exascale machine. So, for example, on the top 500, the list came out in June. That's the latest list. Aurora was number 2 with respect to being an exascale machine. Number 1 was at Oak Ridge National Laboratory, and that's Frontier. However, Aurora was number 1 in terms of the mixed precision benchmark, which is more indicative of AI type applications where you're doing a lot with mixed precision.
Yeah.
So in addition to unique facilities, so you have the computing facilities, but we also have light sources, which are important in terms of X-rays at different frequencies. So you can do, atomistic level characterizations. And so Argonne, we have the advanced photon source, or APS. And right now we have the brightest light source because it was just upgraded.
Wow.
You also have a light source, for example, at Berkeley. You have these different facilities that are large scale at the national labs that makes them unique. But another aspect is the research that's done at the national labs. So you have research that's done related to energy and security, and that's in the broad sense. So you have research that's being done in high performance computing. So significant research in computing, also applied mathematics. But then you have your areas such as material science, you have the high energy physics, your nuclear physics. So all the different disciplines as it relates to energy in a broad sense, and also security. And I think the unique aspect about the national labs is that you find a lot of work that's being done in a multidisciplinary way. And it's very easy to set up teams. So we have teams that consist of computational scientists, as well as in the different domain science areas. For example, I lead a project in microelectronics where we're looking at the materials level all the way up to applications.
Wow.
So we work with material scientists, we work with high energy physicists in terms of the detectors. And then we do a lot in terms of the simulation infrastructure, algorithms.
So if you want a job.
And then we also have joint appointments at universities. So right now, I now have a joint appointment at Northwestern. So they laugh. They go, you've come full circle.
You're back.
Yes. And so you can, sometimes with the joint appointments, you can teach. Yes.
Do you still teach?
I don't, just because of time with leading a division and then also having time for commanded.
Yeah. Teaching would be like ridiculously difficult at that point.
I would be in the negative sleep. So.
Right. I was going to ask you, like, in what ways is working at a national lab similar to academia? And like, what ways is it different? Because I know you mentioned at one point, how you're able to collaborate easily. Like, is it better, worse than academia?
So I think in ways that is similar, it has to do with the research that you're doing. In ways that it's different, everybody's working on research full time. And which, for example, when you take research and you're developing software tools that can be used by a large community, it's easier because now you have people you have researchers working on this full time. And oftentimes when you start to do that in academia, the goal with the students is to get a degree. So you have a student that may start working on a tool, but after 5 years, that student will graduate 5 or 6 years. And then you have a new student that comes along and they feel like, oh, let me redo this part of the tool. I can make it better. And you're going, no, we need to add functionality. And yes. So it makes it easier. You see a lot of also software tools where the research that's being done at the labs will translate into tools that may be available on the facilities.
Mm-hmm.
But you have the staff that's maintaining the tools for the community, bringing in research to add functionality. So we have some tools that are used, for example, with message passing. We have some key tools used with numerical libraries for linear and nonlinear solvers, as well as different optimization methods, as well as, data transfer and data management. So it's really great from that standpoint of having research as the focus full time.
Yeah.
And I think some people may not know, but for example, we write proposals to DOE for our funding.
I was just wondering that. I was going to like, how in the world, like, it's not a conflict of interest because, it is a DOE lab, but is it more like internal where you're only competing with people who are internal, or is it everyone who can write a proposal?
It depends. DOE will come out with a request for a proposal, and they may say it must be led by a lab. But oftentimes they want university partners, or sometimes they may come out with a request for proposals whereby it can be led by a university or a lab.
Okay.
Yes. So we compete with respect to writing proposals to get funding. Yes.
Okay. That's interesting.
Yeah. Yes. So I know it's not where we're a funding source. We write proposals to DOE. We also write proposals to NIH, to DOD as well, and other agencies. And then we have collaborations with industry as well.
So you have this incredible career, right, where you've become renowned really for the work that you do in your space. I know that's probably difficult to hear, but but it's true, right? And at some point you were just like, I'm going to start an organization.
In my spare time.
Yeah, in her free time, children, professorships, adventures, I'm sure, across the country to talk about your work. And you're just like, let me start an organization, which is incredibly large if you're not familiar with Command It. Can you tell us how you got there?
Yes, I can tell you how I got there with Command It. So at the time, if you may recall, there was an organization called the Coalition to Diversify Computing.
Yep,
or CDC.
The other CDC.
Right.
Right.
And I remember when CDC started. And CDC was the joint organization of the three societies, ACM, CRA, and IEEE Computer Society. Alphabetical order. Okay.
Okay. All equal.
That's it. So we were doing work with CDC, but you felt like you always had to get the approval of three societies, okay, which can be cumbersome. And so it was 5 of us, and it was myself, Bryant York, and at that time, Ron Eglash, he was the chair of CDC. It was Ann Gates and Richard Ladner.
Wow.
So the 5 of us, we were saying, what if we had an organization that was independent and it's a nonprofit? Okay, so we were saying, and we want the organization to include people with disabilities in addition to minorities. Because we said it's about culture. And when you look at culture, which is very different from gender, when you look at culture, with culture, everybody has people of different genders in their family. But you don't have people of different cultures in your immediate family. So to really have this appreciation for culture implies an intentionality that you intentional about learning about a culture. Okay. And so we said, let's focus on culture and go across, include people with disabilities. And at that time, it was really novel to include people with disabilities because people were just like, I don't understand why you're doing that. I go, because it's a culture. If you really want to be inclusive, you need to understand the culture of visually impaired, hearing impaired, physically impaired, neurodiverse. You need to understand the culture, just as you understand the culture of African Americans, Blacks, Hispanics, Latina, and also Native Americans. And so we started this organization and we said, we're going to have it as a nonprofit. And it was, it was fine. It's not where we're starting with, money or anything like that, but we're all in this and we were like, okay, what do we want some of the projects to be? And we did SWOT analysis. We had some people engaged in terms of helping us form it. And that was, so for example, Telly Whitney was involved and she's still involved. We also had Stu Feldman, who at that time was vice president at Google.
Wow.
We had also Lucy Sanders with NC-WIT, because we wanted to know NC-WIT was a nonprofit at that time. And so we had some others involved. And we got together and did the paperwork to become a 501c3 and started with different projects. So at that time, we started with projects around data collection. We wanted to know, so for example, you see the CRA Talby report, but one thing that was missing at that time was women of color.
Any intersectional identity was not there.
It was not there. So we did data collection that had an intersectional lens. And so that was one of the first things we came out with. Then we did some things. We were like, what if we could get together as a community and just start to do some things around diversity? And so we were like, diversity as a resource. And so we had a workshop to do that. And we had some projects that resulted to bring culturally responsive projects into the classroom. Okay. Cool. And see, this was great because this actually aligned with Ron Eglash. And he actually had culturally situated design tools, or CSDT. And so we had a project to bring CSDT into the Boys and Girls Clubs.
Nice.
Okay. And so that actually was really good because the students in the Boys and Girls Club gravitated to the CSDTs that were teaching about fractions, teaching about fractals. But for example, with fractals, it was teaching in the context of Native American art or African art.
That's very cool.
Right. And fractions, it was teaching in terms of music and beats.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And then angles, he was teaching in terms of dancers. So one student used the culturally situated design tools with angles where you could do different joints of angles. And he mimicked the Michael Jackson dance. Okay? And we were like, where he went up on the toes of the shoes, that famous dance. And so we were just like, okay, but you have to do it to explain angles. And he did. And he, so it was like, okay, I get it with the angles because, here, the foot is 90, now you're going to 180 and, So
that's cool.
Yeah, so we had those type, of projects starting off, but then we started actually Bryant York. It was a group of us that started the Tapia conference, and so that was still being organized by CDC. But then who was it? At that time, Charles Isbell and Jeff Forbes were co-chairs of CDC, and they approached Commanded and said, okay, you're a 501c3 independent. How about if you take over take over CDC and the Tapia conference? So at that time, we had a board. So we went to the board and discussed it with the board. But we also had a discussion with ACM CRA and IEEE CS. And so we then Commanded took over CDC, and that's when we also took over the Tapia conference as well.
Wow.
And so then the Tapia conference came under some Commanded, because they were just like, well, you have staff now that and you really need full-time staff for the continuity. You can't do it by volunteers, because the reality is everybody has a full-time job.
Yeah.
Yes. And so it's hard. So now the Tapia conference, I think it runs well because of the full-time staff that are constantly asking questions. What about if we do this? What about this? Let's check into this. This is fun. And yeah.
Yeah, you have people who can, like you said, literally dedicate their workday to this versus it being like a side thing.
Yes, when you're tired and after you get ice cream and after you sing the Barney song, you're just like...
And tell the people, how many folks actually attend Tapia? Like usually like around around how many?
So now we're around 2,000 with Tapia. Yes. Yeah. And it's so much fun to look out into the audience. I still remember when I went to that university for, a summer program, and I did the scan and found one other person who looked like me and went down there to sit next to her. I go, at Tapia, you just walk in the door and you see people who look like you, and you're just like, hey,
I'm home. Yep.
And you get this warm feeling.
Yeah, I think of Tapia like a family reunion. Like,
that's it.
I'll go and just see people you haven't seen in forever. You can catch up with people. There's sessions that are on the book, and then the sessions in the hallway that happen. Like it's such a great time, such a great feeling. My first Tapia was my junior year of college. And that was like one of my first times even on a plane going to Tapia. I think it was my second time on a plane going to Atlanta for that Tapia. Like 2000 maybe 3 or something.
Wow. Yes. Yeah. It was that was the second Tapia.
And then and as soon as I get off the plane, who do I see? Jeff Forbes. And I had previously met Jeff in my sophomore year when I did research at Duke over the summer. So I'm like, I automatically see somebody I know getting off the plane, like family.
That's nice. I was going to say earlier when we were introducing you, like, for me, as someone who's considered an outsider by some, right? Like, I was new to the space. One thing that really struck me was how accessible everyone was. Yeah. Right? Like, so, you go to conferences and things like that. You rarely have a chance to meet with people who are more senior than you are. It's like you're in the spaces with your age group, more or less. But you were there and present and introduced yourself to me. And I think those types of experiences are really transformative for students sometimes, where, they're in environments where they are an only, which is still very much happening today. And so you've been able to foster the community that you benefited from all those years ago and pay it forward. So thank you so much for all that you do and all that you've done.
Well, thank you, because you both have contributed to the Tapia conference. So thank you. The success of the Tapia conference is largely due to all the volunteers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And the volunteers make the program, bring out, the interest. And so it takes, Jeremy and Kyla, it takes the two of you as well. So thank you for all that you do. It's so needed. And that was one thing we said. We let speakers know we want you to interact with attendees.
Mm.
So it was great this year. For example, Philip McKibbins, who's the new CTO of the Dallas Mavericks, he stayed for the entire conference.
Wow.
I was like, wow.
That's
even the
so
dance
cool.
party.
That's amazing.
Even the dance party?
That's it.
There's an infamous dance party at the end after the banquet and the awards, and everybody does the chicken dance, and
it.
It's a whole thing. It's a whole thing.
It is. And the chicken dance started because the first Tapia conference was in Houston. And so Richard Tapia was there, and his family was there, and his daughter was there. We had a mariachi band, and his daughter was singing. And so it was like, okay, everybody's going to do the chicken dance. And we're all like, okay.
Chicken dance.
That's it. But we all got up and did the chicken dance. And then we had different music, and we had a Soul Train line. It was fun. And I have to admit, the next day, it's like people were like, oh, my back. Oh.
And usually it's like the last day before you need to like pack up and go to your, get on your flight to go home. So people are, in the airport like, oh, why do I have a 6 a.m. flight? It was such a good time in the last ceremony. Like, if you've never been dancing with a bunch of computer scientists and folks in tech, it is a sight.
It is an experience. It is an experience. You will not forget it. I will say that much.
Not ever.
No, so it makes it a lot of fun that you can party. So you have that party part, and you can be technical. So have fun.
Yes.
Well, thank you, Valerie, so much for your time. We've kept you much longer than we intended to, but
we appreciate it so much.
Yeah, I think it was super important for people to know, like, we barely scratched the surface on some things. Like, a lot of what you've done, we had no idea, right? Like, that you were so instrumental in certain things. So thank you for all of this. Also, like, there's a big dog right here.
Yes, I see the
tail. So I think she's ready for me to get up out of this chair.
Yes. She's giving you the signal, like, okay, it's time.
Yes. So if people want to get in contact with you, what should they do?
Connect on LinkedIn, really a great way, or email via Commanded. And that's Taylor@commandedcmd-it.org.